Information-fueled.
Opinion-driven.
This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
we talk news.
8:06 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 89.7 WTN. Thank you so much for joining us, and I want to get right to the very important person hotline. This is Gary Sinise joining us on the Newsmaker hotline. Gary, it's always so great to have you on. It is an honor, and what you do for the veterans is so incredible. And you're taking part there's a big movie premiere coming up on the 25th. It is called Brothers After War. And you have a very special connection to this movie. Talk about it.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Dan. Yeah, Brothers After War is actually a follow-up documentary to a movie that we made back, over 10 years ago called Brothers at War. And this is a buddy of mine, Jake Rademacher, filmmaker, who had two brothers serving in Iraq, and he embedded with their units over in Iraq and he was able to take a camera over there, and he made this documentary about his brothers serving in the war and what it was like for them to be there and then to come home and what the family was going through while the brothers were at war. And it's a beautiful documentary. You can find it online, Brothers at War. And we decided many years later, hey, what happened to a lot of the guys that we meet in that first movie? Let's find out what they're doing. Are they out of the service now? Are they still serving? And so Jake went, got the camera crew together. My foundation sponsored the film and the filmmaking because we wanted to see how many of them were actually in the veteran space now. They're out of the service, and how dealing with transitioning out of the service has affected them, and what it was like to come home from war for them. This is a current, brand new generation of warfighters, and we wanted to see what the brothers were doing after war and how things were going. It's a beautiful, beautiful documentary. It's going to be opening up in about 100 theaters across the country. Regal is sponsoring the movie in their theaters, and the Gary Sinise Foundation is produced this. We're actually using it in many ways. Jake actually does workshops with veterans groups, and so this is a part of the Gary Sinise Foundation relief and resiliency efforts to kind of take on mental wellness and deal with it head on by trying to get people to see the film and then start talking about their experiences. And it really does get people talking. We don't want them holding a lot of stuff in that will explode in a bad way later on. We want them to get that stuff out, deal with everything, process it. And this film helps them do that.
Well, it's very cathartic. I'm sure. I'm not a veteran, but it's got to be very cathartic because one of the things that our veterans tell me, I interview them quite often, is that movies like this, documentaries like this, it helps them realize that they're not alone. So when they see these kinds of movies, it is a reminder that they are not alone. And if they're going through the things that we all know the veterans go through, it's a reminder for them that there is help out there, that they can certainly get it if they need it.
That's exactly what the movie does and tries to address. We have a very serious mental wellness problem in the country. You've heard the statistics about veteran suicide and all of that, and we want to be proactive in addressing that and trying to combat that. And we found with Brothers at War, showing that movie on military bases to military folks who were coming home from Iraq and Afghanistan and dealing with processing what they'd been through and then trying to, assimilate back into the family life and all of that, that Brothers at War was very, very helpful. Jake started doing workshops on military bases all across the country. He's done hundreds and hundreds of workshops, addressed thousands and thousands of active duty folks, and we want to do that exact same thing with Brothers After War. We want to be very proactive in addressing the issues that our warfighters go through when they go off to war and then come home. And that's what Brothers After War achieves. I think it's beautifully done. Jake did a great job.
How do you decide? There's so many, and Gary Sinise joining us, of course, from the Gary Sinise Foundation, does incredible work for veterans. There's so many different ways to bring the veterans and their challenges and their accomplishments to the forefront of the conversation here in America. I know this is kind of like it's a generic question, but how do you decide which ones? Because there's so many.
Which veterans?
No, which story? Which, there's the accomplishments that they make when they come out of the military. There's the challenges when they come out of the military. There's a lot of stories to be told. I guess, yeah. How do you decide which ones are deserving to be told? Because I know that there's a lot of stories out there.
Well, there's millions. Yes.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of people serve our country and come home from war over the decades. What we try to do with Brothers After War is address the stories of the particular individuals who we meet in the first film. And so you flash back, and Jake does a really good job of using footage from the first film, where these folks were over in Iraq, serving, out in the middle of nowhere in the desert. Things happen. A lot of difficult things happen in that first film. And then revisiting those war fighters all these years later, through them, we kind of experience, what it was like to go off and serve and what it was like to come home and step away from the service and how difficult that may have been, what the challenges were. And I think, by telling these maybe 10 to 12 particular stories in Brothers After War, we get a well-rounded picture of what it may have been like for hundreds, if not thousands, of veterans coming home after serving in Iraq. There's a lot of challenges in making the transition from serving in the military to civilian life, and that can be very, very challenging for folks. So we picked these 10 to 12 stories based on the first film, and you get to meet them in the first film. You get to look back at the footage that we had from the first film, and then apply that as they're talking about what it was like to come home from war. It's really well done.
Gary, I know that your son Mac passed away, and I know that for a lot of people who go through, and I want to play just a little snippet, if I could, of some of Mac's music. This is amazing, amazing music. And he passed away a couple of years ago from, I guess it was a rare form of cancer. But knowing how appreciative he was of music, have you done a lot of research, or have you worked a lot with veterans who can utilize music as a way to overcome the things that they went through in war?
Yes. Well, there are a lot of great programs out there that are engaging veterans, through music and teaching them. I have one buddy, a warfighter named Scotty Hastings. It's really kind of amazing what he did. He was dealing with a lot of post-traumatic stress, and he picked up a guitar, had never played it before, and started to learn, and that has helped him so much. And now he's got a recording contract and
wow.
Everything. I mean, he's got records. Look him up, Scotty Hastings. And Scotty's really an unusual situation because he had never played before. And all of a sudden he's playing guitar, and then the next thing he knows, he's got a recording contract. And he's writing music, and he's out there, and that helped him heal. And through that, he is encouraging and teaching other veterans and passing it on to how music helped him heal. It really is beautiful. And I know that, you're playing this beautiful piece that my son Mac wrote called Arctic Circles.
Yes.
And he actually wrote it in college at USC Music School years ago, and he never finished it. And he was diagnosed with a very serious, rare, incurable cancer that disabled him quite a lot. He was a drummer, a great composer, and he couldn't really play music anymore, and so he was, kind of tucked it away, was fighting cancer. But in the last year of his life, he said to me he wanted to go back and revisit this piece of music he wrote in college and try to finish it. And he went into the studio with his buddy Oliver Schnee, who helped him finish the piece of music, and they went in the studio and recorded with an orchestra. You can see it at Mac Sinise YouTube. You can see the video of the recording session and everything, and that turned into an entire album for him. And I know that through the last year of his life, with the disability that he had and the difficult challenges of fighting this cancer, that having music just helped sustain him, through a lot of very difficult and challenging times. And it turned into an entire album that you can get at GarySiniseFoundation.org. The vinyl is selling at the foundation, and Mac wanted all the proceeds to go to the Gary Sinise Foundation to help our veterans. He worked for the foundation until the cancer just got too difficult for him.
Yeah.
And you know what? And that album came out, it's almost sold 5,000 copies of the vinyl. It's now on, you can download it. It's called Resurrection and Revival. And after he died, I found all this additional music that he'd written. So I went to work and produced a part 2 of Resurrection and Revival, and that's available now as well. And I know that music just helped him so much, just having that to focus on as he was fighting it out with this awful cancer that took his life. And for me to be able to go to work on a second record, finding all that music was like finding a treasure box. And I just found all this beautiful stuff he'd written and tucked away. So I went to work producing that second album, and that helped me because we lost him, and within a couple of months I was going to work on this project for him that we finished in the fall, and now that record is available at GarySiniseFoundation.org as well, and you can download both these records.
This is beautiful. I mean, because I'm a simpleton, so this isn't necessarily stuff that I would listen to. This is beautiful. This is really beautiful. And you're a bass player, of course, so you're a musician too. Gary Sinise joining us, and talk about how you infused. I'm assuming that you were instrumental in teaching Mac the beauty of music.
Well, I was just talking to somebody about it. I have a picture of him up. Mac started a podcast at the Gary Sinise Foundation. He was fighting cancer, and he was worried he wasn't going to be able to come into the office. And he wanted to continue with the foundation, and so he wanted something to do from home, and he started a podcast in at late 2019, early 2020. And he did a couple of podcasts, and then the cancer fight just became too difficult. So we, after he died, we decided to resurrect the podcast at the Gary Sinise Foundation. We built a podcast studio in his honor. And you can see the podcast at GarySiniseFoundation.org, but on the wall, there's a picture of Mac at 9 years old. First time I put the drumsticks in his hand, we got him some drums, a little starter kit, and he started playing, and he could play right away. I mean, he kind of picked it up very quickly and just kept playing all the way through elementary school and into high school and into college. He went to the Thornton School of Music at USC. I have a very clear picture in my mind of sitting there videotaping him playing for the first time. I put a record on for him that had a very simple rock beat, and he played along with it. And I'll never forget that. It was really something to see him just take to it. So, kind of easily. I mean, it came very naturally.
So there was there was no reaction from some parents who buy their kids a drum set where it's like, oh, what were we thinking?
No. Luckily, we had a basement. So,
a lot of soundproofing, right?
Yeah, we put him down in a basement, and he would just play and play and play. And he was an excellent drummer. I have a very, very good drummer in my band, very well known, named Danny Gottlieb. And Danny really took to Mac, and Danny's wife, Beth, she's a percussionist as well in my band, and they were good mentors for him. Mac also had another tremendous mentor, a wonderful drummer named Greg Bissonette. We were fortunate. We lived in Los Angeles, and we had access to some pretty good people, some really great people. And they were great mentors to him, and just loved teaching him because he was just kind of like a sponge, and he could do things, very, very naturally. And I just loved watching him. And he played with us. He was our backup drummer when Danny couldn't be there. And there are some YouTube videos. I mean, if you go to Mac Sinise YouTube, there's actually a YouTube video of Mac playing with my band when he's probably about, I don't know, maybe he's 19 or 20 years old. And you can see somebody videotaped me and Mac on stage playing together, and I'm so grateful. I don't even know who made the video, but it's on Mac Sinise YouTube, along with videos of Arctic Circles and Mac playing harmonica on the American classic Shenandoah with an orchestra backing him up. He couldn't play drums or really even play the piano anymore, but his mom suggested he get a harmonica, and he's laying in the hospital bed teaching himself how to play the harmonica. And if you look at Shenandoah on Mac Sinise YouTube, it's just beautiful to see him playing with the orchestra. And there are a bunch of videos there at Mac Sinise YouTube.
I'm here on his YouTube page, and definitely some things I'm going to check out after I get off the air. Gary, it is always so great to speak with you. I know how busy you are, but you take the time to talk to little old us here in Nashville, Tennessee, and I very much appreciate it. Brothers After War, and that is coming out. There's going to be the premiere, red carpet premiere, is going to happen on the 25th. I'm going to get more information on that for folks. How can people find out more information on Brothers After War? You did a great job of telling us about it. Is there a website or some place where people can find out more information?
If you go to the homepage of the Gary Sinise Foundation, GarySiniseFoundation.org, right there is the trailer of Brothers After War and some information about it. And then there's also there's stories about Mac and the music. It's all right there at GarySiniseFoundation.org. The movie will open in about 100 theaters across the country. It's a documentary, so Regal is committing 100 theaters to give it space starting on February 28th.
I can't wait to see it. I'm going to be there for the red carpet premiere. And Gary, it's always such a pleasure, and thank you for calling in.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dan. Thanks for having me.
All right, bye-bye. 824 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Joan, I'm going to admit, I got a little weepy there.
I don't know how you got through it without crying. I was like, crying.
Oh, my God. And here's the problem. The problem is, because everybody knows that I'm a weeper, and so he's describing all of this, and the music is playing in the background, and I don't have my glasses to shield it anymore when I start tearing up. And I'm like, oh, gosh, people can see my eyes. So I did my best to hold it back.
You've been exposed.
But, oh, my goodness. And that is really good. That Arctic Circles by Max Sinise.
Yes.
Holy mackerel. So, I'm going to...
Do you know how old Mac was when he passed?
I think he was 33. I think he was 33. I could be wrong on that, but clearly musically talented.
Yeah.
Well, it is, and I come from a family of cancer survivors and kids who have had cancer and so forth. So it is something that I particularly can relate to, and I I can't imagine the pain that he went through. But for Gary Sinise, the fact that his son lives on in this music, and the fact that he was able to find a bunch of music after Mac passed away.
Oh, yeah, that's incredible.
Just incredible.
Yeah.
So good for Gary, and I'm gonna go to that. I think I'm gonna go to that premiere. I'm gonna get the information on it, and I'm gonna go. As soon as we go to a break, I'll get the intel. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't forget about the interview, but we've had so much stuff going on today. I come in from getting my coffee, and Jeff says, Gary Sinise is on the hotline. And it was like an oh crap moment. It's like, oh, yeah. So, but I knew, generally speaking, what it was about. And what a pleasure Gary Sinise is to talk to.
He is. And he's such a good guy. Have
you ever seen the Gary Sinise band?
Yeah.
Have you? I saw him at the Grand Ole Opry.
Oh, not live. I have not seen it live, but I've seen it.
I saw them live play at the Opry.
Did you?
Yeah. And I keep asking, I didn't do it this time because it was totally inappropriate, but I in the past keep asking Gary if he started work on that 5-string bass, because he plays a 4-string, and so people like to show off with the 5-string bass.
Oh yeah.
So I keep asking him if he's taking up the 5-string, and so when I actually met him backstage at the opera, and he's meeting all these people are just sticking hands in there to shake and all that, and so I knew that he had no idea who I was, but he's being very Gary Sinise. He's being very polite and nice and everything.
Very kind, yes.
And I said, I'm the guy that keeps asking you about the 5-string bass. And I saw a little bit of an eye roll. I did. I'm not going to lie. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you're that guy.
You're the one.
Yeah.
Anyway, there you go.
Stalker.
He's awesome. All right, 8:27 on Nashville's Morning News. I'm getting the stink eye from the producer. 8:27 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk Late at Night. Listen, I'm late, but it was worth it. It was Gary stinking Sinise, man. We'll make time for him anytime.
Didn't know that it was his middle name?
No, it's not, but that's for me, that's how I honor Gary Sinise.
Yeah.
Because he's awesome. Now, the first time I ever spoke to him, I was so nervous. Because he's one of my favorite actors.
Yeah.
And, when he was in Forest Gump, I'm rambling, but when he was in Forest Gump and all that, unbelievable Lieutenant Dan.
Yep.
So,
yep.